So, you decided to stay, huh? Interesting. That must mean that you do want to know the thought process and what goes through the minds of hackers and how they look to gain a foothold into your organization. Of course, as you know, penetration testers are hackers. You pay to test whether your security is strong enough to withstand real cyber criminals. So what can we learn from professional hackers? Well, let's find out from our panel. Please help me welcome to the stage Richard Avery, Paul Barau, and Steve Simons. How you feeling, gentlemen? You happy? You happy to be here? You're enjoying the energy so far? Yes?
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Great event.
Love it.
So obviously the ones who stayed here want the secrets. They want to know what you're thinking. First and foremost, let's start with an obvious question, and we'll start with you, Paul. What are you looking for specifically? What are you trying to take advantage of with regards to a breach?
So, we take a look at what information is on the network, oversharing, over permissions, devices that aren't patched. So we try to find anything that isn't done properly and take advantage of that and looking at where that is right across the board.
I'd be really curious to know of a particularly challenging penetration testing scenario that you encountered, and how did you overcome it? What's one of the most challenging or unique to some degree?
So I think one of the challenging one is I was hired to penetrate a network, went in, I successfully got into the network, did my thing, started to run my scripts to take advantage of encrypt files, and I got stopped. And I got stopped by ThreatLocker. And that's how I got introduced to it. I could not circumvent the system. It stopped me in my tracks, my normal tools that I use to get into basically anywhere and do anything I want. It didn't work for me. It stopped me cold.
And Richard, looking back at your experience as a professional hacker, is that an okay term? Can I use professional hacker as a term? Yeah.
Professional hacker, cybersecurity expert, they go hand in hand nowadays.
They do. Have you gone ahead and created your own definition of zero trust?
I have, because we've got different environments. Every customer has an endpoint device. Every customer is using the network, and every customer effectively is using a cloud in some way. So you need to have a zero trust method and model for each one of those, whether it's ThreatLocker on an endpoint device, you're doing something to secure your network path to wherever you're going, and you're validating that, whether it's DNS or some other way, and then you're doing something to secure cloud, make sure that your cloud is, whether it's conditional logging or some other thing that you're not trusting everybody that comes along. So you gotta, each piece of the pie has to be locked down.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I would imagine that as you are gaining insight and perspective as a penetration tester, you are then able to flip that into your cybersecurity strategy, are you not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of pen testers and hackers out there that still prefer to just, red team it and push stuff over. And all right, I'm done, I'm out, right? I broke the stuff and here's my paycheck. But as a cybersecurity professional that wants to secure the environments more, you're looking at the ways attackers are attacking, and just like they're reverse engineering security patches to gain a way to attack and compromise machines, we're looking at the ways attackers create those attacks and then reverse engineer them to create a defense against it.
Steve, have you ever gone ahead and successfully infiltrated an organization to claim they had a zero trust security posture?
So we had one a while ago with a red team exercise when it was a physical pen test on the actual building, and the tester gained access into a reception area by tailgating somebody through the front door. Didn't head for the main office though, which was also controlled with door access controls. Headed straight for the toilet, which there was no controls on who can get in and out of the toilet. Hid in the toilet for 15 minutes till he had then heard somebody else come through the front door, came out of the toilet and tailgated them into the office. Immediately set up on a desk. It was obviously, since COVID, a lot of desks now are like hot desking setups, so somebody can plug in or they can work from home. Got his NUC out, plugged into the network. The network access control from ThreatLocker stopped him in his tracks. And I think that was a fantastic one for us, because even though he got into the building, he got to touch the network, there was nothing that he could do because of zero trust. But yeah, just the way he got in was...
We were Sorry for jumping in. We were hearing one of our speakers say before that it's a very high percentage that's typically related to human errors with regards to breaches. Do you agree with that? Is that a fundamental yes on that as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's, human error, whether it's human error in configuration or whether it's a human error clicking a link. Pretty much 99% is because of a human error somewhere in the food chain. They've either mistrusted somebody or something, or they've got it misconfigured, or they're relatively arrogant and believe that they can't be touched and they can be touched.
Oh, you just opened up a can of worms there. Let's talk about that, because you are obviously dealing with a variety of clients and systems. Do you feel that the majority are overly confident in terms of their security posture or where they are, or how they feel about the systems they have in place? As a general blanket statement.
Yeah, I think for sure. Like I was hired to do a penetration test, and I owned the network in about 5 minutes, and I went to give my report to the director of IT, and he's like, I can't, I just spent $300,000 in cybersecurity. They're going to fire me. Right? Like I spent all this money.
So he refused to submit the report?
He didn't want to submit it to his high ups.
What's going on there? Wow.
Because he would get fired. Like there's that arrogance that, okay, I'm forced to do this pen test, but you're not going to find anything. And I think we've all got situations where we've had that, where people have said, you're not going to see anything. And then we come in and see it at some level. So, the moral story is you will get breached. Every one of your clients will get breached. It's just a question of how long it takes for you to find them and how fast and how much data they can get before you catch them.
Steve, in terms of the scope of the size of organizations that you work with or that you've assisted with, is it only the large size, or is it also the SMBs? Is there a mixture of both?
There's a mixture of lots of different.
And by the way, sorry for jumping in. Is there a shift to also the smaller clients now who are starting to realize slowly that this has to be an integral part of how they do business?
I'd say it's probably more industry specific than size specific. I don't know if anybody else would agree that they've seen the same thing, but like financial institutions tend to take things a lot more seriously nowadays. Insurance, anything that handles personal identifiable information, they tend to take it quite seriously. But there are still some industries where, we only use computers for a small part of what we actually do, like potentially construction. Like, the IT is not a big part of our business. And I think it's more industry than the size of the actual organization. I think even small organizations that focus in sectors that carry big penalties for cybersecurity breaches, they're taking it just as seriously as everybody else. And I think with cyber insurance these days, the criteria to get qualified for cyber insurance has required all companies of all sizes to take it seriously.
Well, do you think pen testers are in some way underappreciated?
Yeah, I think I look at myself more as a security consultant than a pen tester.
Right.
So like it's just, it is part of a toolkit to allow companies to be safe. So are we underappreciated? Maybe we are.
Or is it more misunderstood?
I think a lot of it's misunderstood. I think and again, it's just what people expect us to do and how we do it, or the arrogance that we can't get breached. You were nodding your head as well about underappreciated.
It's our job to find something, no matter what, right? And it's the opinion of a lot of IT companies and MSPs that we're not going to find anything. It's a flawless environment, and if it can't be a flawless environment. You're not a 24/7 shop just totally grinding away. It's almost impossible to be like, you have 0 CVEs, there's 0 footholds, there's no way anybody can touch anything. It's really unlikely. Is it secure so that a pen tester can't, or a hacker can't get data out or exfiltrate stuff? Sure, it might be at that point, but you're not perfect. It can't be.
Have you seen an exponential growth in the attacks? Is this, we've been talking about just how often it's happening, how much money is at stake, how long they're in the system prior. But are you seeing that as well in terms of?
I think you're seeing a shift. You have groups now that job is to hack you. They don't want to do anything. They want to breach your network. They're going to sell you as a hackable location for $100 or $150. And so you have different groups now where you would have one group start to finish do your hack. You now have multiple people playing different roles. You'll have somebody that's taking your data. You'll have somebody that does the breach, somebody that's analyzing the network. So it's not one person. You will have a group of people that will sell up the food chain to see where that is and get monetary value. Because the guy that breaches your network, he's like, I'm not breaking the law. I'm not taking your stuff, but I'm going to take my $150 and move on.
The thing with those, if I can just add, those aren't necessarily targeted attacks. So those are people who are just looking for specific vulnerabilities, the RDP, stuff like that. They'll exploit things that they're really good at exploiting. And then once they figure out who you are, what your organization does, they can then sell that connection to somebody who is potentially doing a targeted attack. They call them connection brokers or remote access brokers.
Yeah.
And again, they're not targeted. They're not targeting you as an individual. Because a lot of businesses that I've dealt with over the past, the shift has changed in the last 2-3 years, but a lot of it's, why would anybody want to hack us? What have we got that they might want? They're not looking for you specifically, they're looking for a vulnerability that they can exploit so that they can then potentially sell access to your system to somebody who does want to target you.
One of the goals for the fireside chat that I wanted to have with all three of you was to leave some nuggets with our attendees. Those were smart enough to be with us during the fireside chat. Let's get into the nitty and gritty of some of the areas that are being exploited on a regular basis that are common, recurring with regards to pen testing. So you guys can all take a chance to share your thoughts, but are there any areas in particular that you think just organizations need to be focusing on right now?
My favorite attack is printers. Printers are typically never patched or rarely patched. They're on the network. Typically sysadmins are lazy and map scan to drive as an administrator. So once I breach that printer, I have administrator access on the whole network. So that's usually my number one attack vector. I usually go after.
Do you start with that and see if they're exposed on the printer side?
I typically do, because that's usually never patched. So that's typically one of my entry points that I look at. So that would be for me, that's my first entry point, is because printers are running Apache of some flavor and rarely patched.
Richard?
One of the things that when I explain how hacking works is that it doesn't matter whether it's a social engineering or a physical, a phishing email, a rubber ducky or an OMG cable. We're trying to get somebody to do something that they're not supposed to do and that we want them to do. So how do you identify those people inside an organization that are more susceptible? You can use dark web information and bad password management. It doesn't matter if those passwords are all dead, right? Tina's got Princess 1 and she's in 19 different breaches. We know Tina has bad cybersecurity practices mentally.
Absolutely.
Therefore, if I've got 150 people in an organization and one user screams at me, this person doesn't get it, that's the person that's going to get the targeted phishing, the targeted Facebook, the targeted LinkedIn request. I'm going to gun after that person. And you can't make that knowledge go away. That's still out there on the dark web, and it's going to be there forever.
And ironically enough, it's not something that, from a culture standpoint within organizations, that they actually use as a sort of a learning curve or any method to emphasize that or enforce that. Nobody gets put onto a probation plan because of their lack of cybersecurity behaviors, which maybe is something that needs to be incorporated. Have you seen companies have that kind of culture where they take these breaches seriously, or is it more of like, thanks for the information, great, we know where the problem's coming from, and we'll just do the best we can to patch it up?
Some people take that seriously, especially if you've got a SIEM and it's already doing dark web scanning and it's monitoring. That's great, but no organization is like, hey, Sam, your MySpace password from 10 years ago, really bad, right?
Well, I forgot about MySpace.
You're going to get punished for that, right? That just really, one, it probably shouldn't happen, and two, having an internal mechanism where people are doing some sort of training and they're getting credit for it and they're being recognized for it, especially if it's like, hey, you got to take these 5 classes, but we have these 30 available. What else have you watched? What else have you trained on? Because, and you'll also find organizations that don't want to, they start doing the math. They're like, I've got 200 employees. You want me to have them watch how many hours? On the clock? Oh man, that's like me hiring 3 extra people a year. That's a lot of money. And then the money cogs start to roll, and that's where decisions get made.
I think it's a difficult one with regards to, would you punish a member of staff for failing a phishing test? Me personally, I think the surprise training that you get after failing a phishing test is punishment enough. But I think gamification is probably a big way to get people invested in it, because if you start punishing users for mistakes, whilst I appreciate they could be detrimental to the business, you don't want to turn them against what the organization is trying to achieve. So gamification is a great way, reward people, pat them on the back. And I think that's always much more of a better incentive than punishment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I've also noticed that with regards to compliance documentation or exercises that they have to do every quarter, every 6 months, etc., if it's a 20-question exercise, there's probably only 2 out of those 20 that are with regards to cybersecurity or phishing emails, etc. So maybe expand on that. Could be a great deal. When we talk about your opponent in some way, head of cybersecurity, IT, etc., what are the skill sets that you think organizations should be looking for in the person that will be overseeing cybersecurity for that organization? What's one of the things that you would expect them to have? To not just know the technical know-how, but also maybe a skill set that could be very useful with regards to onboarding the right person.
Me? Okay.
No, I was just thinking that. I was trying to think of an answer myself.
I think the lack of arrogance, I guess, that's probably the biggest thing. You trip into a lot of directors, ITs, or security guys inside companies, and they just don't want to hear you, or they don't want to listen to your recommendations, or they just know better than you.
Do you feel that sometimes?
For sure. They discount. 100%.
Right. So you're considered like a third party, consultant that's coming in, that's basically going to tear everything down that we've built, and so you get that sentiment. 100%.
And so they're the worst people because they're probably the easiest ones to breach, for one way or another, for taking advantage. They're arrogant. So I think that would, somebody who is not that role, that is understanding that they will get breached, how do I then identify the breach and fix that quickly? Like somebody who is more grounded, I guess I could say, would be a better way to go.
I think we mentioned it this morning about failure, and everybody's so afraid to fail or admit failure. And especially, I do solutions architecture, so I build infrastructures as well as stuff. There isn't an amount of pride to it. When a third party comes in and says, this is configured really badly, this is really unsafe, a lot of people immediately jump on the defensive because I can't be seen to fail, I can't be seen to have done something wrong. But failure is perfectly acceptable as long as you're learning from it, improving from it, moving on from it. And you do come across those defensive people who take it personally, and it's like, this isn't you as an individual, there's just something here that needs to change and we need to improve.
It's almost like
I was just going to say, it's almost like the denying part of it is actually worse than what they have in place. Richard?
When Danny's doing presentations about rubber duckies, or we're talking about Wi-Fi pineapples, or you're talking about effectively all the kit you can buy at Hack 5 with a credit card swipe, no plug. The intent is that if you have it, there's 10 other people that have built some other Malduino weird Android kit that they haven't shared. It's not on GitHub. You can't go buy it. You can't go download it. You can't go reproduce it yourself. There's going to be more Ponagachis. There's going to be more, Flipper Zeros. Every 2 months, there's going to be another, something on constructibles that is going to be a hacker tool. So it's more about, you need to be prepared for these things. When you're preparing for those things, you're only preparing for what you know about. You get that, known unknowns and unknown unknowns. How do you prepare for the unknown unknown? Well, the guy who's defending the network isn't a pen tester. He's not a hacker. You can't expect him to have every single box checked that we're going to come in and try and find. So
it's almost like a different perspective.
You have
bring a different perspective to it.
Like I'm knocking things over on a daily basis. You're not ready to stand it up.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes to this is a common experience that we all had. We've all been hired to breach networks, and I don't think there's any that we've ever failed at. I'm not saying that in an arrogance. I'm just saying that, to your point, there's always something somewhere. We may not get very much out of it, like the guy breached the network, got in, but he couldn't get data in the story of hanging out in the washroom. So, you will get breached, your clients will get breached. It's just a question of how fast you catch that. And also, to your point on knowledge, when I started hacking in the 80s, I had to have knowledge. I had to learn, I had to do it myself, I had to write my own code, I had to do all that. Now I can go to any one of 100 websites, any one of 100 darknet sites, and download tools, or hire somebody for $5 to do it for me. So the education that is needed by a hacker is zero almost now. Whereas in the past it was very laborious to do what what we did.
Yeah.
You owe me that $5, by the way.
We were talking about it this morning. It used to be the cost of entry was knowledge. Because before Google, YouTube tutorials and stuff, you had to know what you were doing while you're doing it. Now the cost of entry is purely financial. You can buy most of what you need to do to get stuff done. And if you can't, you can pay somebody to write it for you. So it's that shift in that's something that we've noticed.
Both of you, when I asked about a complex situation you had to deal with, both gave ThreatLocker as being a deterrent, a serious deterrent. How encouraged are you or excited about the different iterations and the evolution of ThreatLocker and what service it provides in terms of security and where it's headed?
You want to tackle that first?
I think zero trust, least privilege, it's the only way to go, really. You were saying, like these network admins, they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine, but if you apply least privilege and you only assign people what you know they do need, you're much better postured to weather those storms if something new does come in and an unexpected attacks the network, rather than, like you say, a scanner having domain admin for the SMB access and stuff. So for me, zero trust when it comes to insider threat, when it comes to network access control, you're just bolstering your defenses, and this whole game is defense in depth. It's not just one product, one solution, everything's fixed. You need to realize that everybody is coming at you from every vector, and ThreatLocker have a product that's pretty good at bolstering that posture.
Yeah, it's one piece of a tool, but it provides you where the hacker will get limited to no access to whatever you're doing, or whatever he wants to do, right? Like, I wrote an encryption tool that major XDRs didn't catch, but ThreatLocker wouldn't allow me to open the files to encrypt it. So, these companies bought major XDRs that had no value, because I wasn't, even though they're not supposed to be signature based, my custom stuff ran through it. So, but ThreatLocker stops it in the ground, and that's the only way I think we're gonna, to your point, you don't know what you don't know. So it's secure for what we don't know, and that means there's no permit. The days of allowing everything are gone.
When you look at cybersecurity over the next 5 to 10 years, what has you the most concerned? In terms of where we're headed, the lack of security, the breaches, the increase, the exponential growth, the money. I mean, is there one particular area where you're saying this is really concerning, and you're seeing it from your perspective?
I guess from where we start talking about AI coming in and deepfakes and all that side of it, where companies are you're gonna have a Zoom call with your CEO that's not your CEO. Right? So you're going to have that level of trust coming in more because you're trusting your eyeballs, right? I was at a security conference in Las Vegas, and they basically took somebody out of the crowd, took their business card, used their voicemail to create a voice print of them, did a voice print, got into their bank, and basically proved that, in a matter of seconds based on a voicemail, they could get through that. That stuff is more, I think, scary coming down the road, is that level of trust of that entry point. There's tools always going to come out. Software has always got bugs in it. There's going to be released. I don't think that's going to be a new problem. That's going to be what we've got now. Just that AI coming in and being able to more simulate the process and the people, I think to me is more scary.
Steve, did you have
well, I think everybody's talking about, obviously, with SOC and SIEM solutions, using machine learning and AI and stuff. The flip side of that is threat actors can use machine learning and AI to try and target networks. So it's, I don't know. I mean, I've said for a long time the internet's a scary place, and I don't see that changing in the next 5 to 10 years.
AI is going to be the way it.
So you're all in agreement that AI is really the big one. It's really the area where it's bringing the most amount of concern.
I think it's at the forefront of almost everybody's.
Because we're still too early at the iterations. We're still. I mean, this is it's going to do the exact same for the world that the internet did.
Yeah.
So AI is just 1990 Netscape.
Yeah.
Right. In comparison, like when we start iterating, a client of mine emailed me yesterday, and they're like, "Hey, here's that statement of work. We're going to do, $20,000 worth of work for, a large organization." And I look at the statement of work, I'm like, "Man, this is really nice. Like, you've been writing statements of work for a while." He's like, "Don't be impressed. This was just ChatGPT in 2 minutes."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh."
I'll just take that.
Yeah,
I'll just take that.
Going to reuse that. So when you have it, and it's like I've got a developer in-house, and he's like, ChatGPT and AI is just, it's like having a junior dev right here. Hey, go write this thing. Now, can you read what it's spitting out? Can you decipher what it's spitting out that's good or bad? And then that's the skill set that's on you.
And how many securities are in what that AI wrote?
Yeah. What is the next attack going to be to compromise some AI platform to have it inject command and control into all the scripts it writes? Then suddenly 10,000 people get hacked, and it's because they were using ChatGPT to write code for them on websites for WordPress, right? What is going to be the next AI big hack that everyone's going to be like, oh God, AI is the devil.
Right.
It's just how do you use it, like any other tool.
I wanted to just shift gears here real quick. We have a couple of minutes left together. I was curious to know your stance as cybersecurity consultants of which side of the fence you're on when it comes to hacktivism.
We were talking about this backstage. I was like, obviously for professional reasons, we're against it. But
Yeah.
I can't really elaborate further on that, unfortunately.
I understand. No, because there are two sides to it, and from your perspective, it's also seeing it from a different optic. So I was really curious to know. But I also, one of the things I wanted to know is the reason why you went into this field and why you're so passionate about it. And what is it about this line of work that really grabs your attention real quick?
For me, I left school, I became an engineer, I was a fabricator and welder. I've always worked with my hands. I left the fabricating and welding industry, I became a mechanic, so I've always fixed things. But
So you went from mechanic to cybersecurity?
So fabricator and welder, to being a mechanic, the motor industry was dying, so I was like, well, I've always been good with computers. I can get my grandma's Wi-Fi online pretty quick. I can help her check her emails.
It's always grandma that pays the price, right? Like she's always the testing.
Yeah, you can do stuff. So everybody was like, you should do it for a living. And I was like, it's my hobby, it's my passion. I don't want to do that for my day-to-day because that won't be in England we call it a busman's holiday. But the industries that I was working in weren't paying very well, there were no prospects. So I moved into IT support and I've just flown from there. But I think for me, what has got me to where I am is I like to know how things work. I like to know how I can make them work differently. If somebody tells me that won't let you do that, I want to know why. How can I cheat it? How can I make it do what I want it to do? And I've just, whether it's computer, software, mechanical, engineering, I've always just had that logical sort of, I want to beat that mindset, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's like building a wall, and getting over that wall, right? It's a challenge. I've been doing this since the 80s. And it's adventure. It's fun. It's a hobby. Like it's a job that I enjoy going to do. I've worked for law firms as a forensic expert. Like I've done a pile of things, but I always sort of come back to this is enjoyable. Like going to breach a network is fun, and
it's probably
I'm getting paid to do it. So and I get to show up the arrogant IT guy that he's wrong. So it's a win-win.
It's probably one of the only industries where stubbornness is actually a key skill set that you need to do your line of work. So, Richard, what is it about the industry that really lights you up?
This has always been kind of where I was fostered. My father was a locksmith. So I was always I was drilling safes and picking locks before I was 10. And it was always, and my father kind of said to me, he's like, hey, more than 50% of my calls are break back into my car, get me back into my house. So you're going to need to know how to unsecure what you secured. You're going to need to know how to get into it. And that's always just kind of where things have gone from there.
Real quick, by a show of hands, is Hackers the best movie about hackers ever made? Yes or no?
Of course.
Yeah, I knew I would get. I thought I'd get one. I didn't think I would get three. Yeah, go ahead.
On the hacktivism question.
Yeah.
They're the most dangerous because they're not in it for the money.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you really have.
Oh,
to
that's
worry
powerful.
about. Right? They're if they're going to spend 15 hours a day trying to damage your infrastructure, and they don't care how.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's it's them to prove a point rather than anything else. And there's no way to pay them off or shut them up. They're going to get what they want.
Well, you know what? It was an absolute pleasure to welcome these three gentlemen to the panel. Big round of applause, everybody, for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. I'll just ask you to stay there. A couple of notes for you, very important. Due to popular demand, Incident Response Lab will be happening in the Hacking Lab at 5:15, so that will be a redo. We're offering that. And at 5:45 tonight, we will also have the Rubber Duckies, so Intro to Rubber Duckies. If you missed it earlier today, again, we will be redoing that in the Hacking Lab. Do want to continue with some awesome presentations that we have for the next and final batch of concurrent sessions. So we've got high-profile targets, a fireside chat on the risks and strategies for protection here on the main stage that I'll be moderating. The breakout session is the second part of the So You've Deployed ThreatLocker Now What series to discuss best practices. And the Hacking Lab is a dual presentation on touring the dark web and guided password hashing demonstration. You've got 5 minutes to make your choice, and we'll see you back here. One last round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much.